were many at the community level. And we made a goal to establish and live by the spiritual calendar. That was the goal number one. Goal two is to revitalize our women's societies. And goal three is to uplift and recognize women in leadership roles. And goal four, develop programs and tools to reach more young women. So those are the goals. We each have, objectives that follow those goals. So that's kind of the historical perspective that we took off with to reach and to engage within the community. And I just like to add in that I too have had an abundance of mentors who led, into coming into a woman that I am, and also in the positions and the calling of doing the work that I do. So I just really wanted to remember all of those women and men that have really helped and come about. So I just like to have Dusty share from that extension of those goals that I shared with you.
I came on WHAM after it was established, but I spoke with Helene, who was one of the founders, Helene Gaddy from Generations Indigenous Ways, and the way that I remember from what she told me is that it spurred from the women's ethics meeting and then the mutual aid response, the Indigenous mutual aid response that was happening all over the country, but specifically in our Oglala community, Oglala Lakota community. Helene and a bunch of community grassroots organizers spurred into action, and then everyone kind of started getting connected. And I know that Fender Valley, Oglala Lakota Children's Justice Center, Mila Yaktapika, Okola Kichie, Knife Chief Buffalo Nation, they all came together, and I was working at Fender Valley at that time, and I kept hearing Lynn and Tateme saying, in women's equity, we're working on this, women's equity movement. And so I said, what is that? What's that group? And they explained what they were doing and how they were meeting, and I said, can anyone be in it? And they said, yeah. And I said, I want to be in it, can I be in it? And they said, yeah, come on. And so I invited myself, and they welcomed me. And we kind of, when we would meet, we would talk about what does our community need? Because we wanted to address the domestic violence, the suicide, and the abuse in our communities that became more exacerbated during and after the pandemic. And so we started out doing, we ended up on the spiritual calendar. And one of the things that came from those meetings early on was the Ohunkaka series, where we featured several elders telling stories through the winter months. And yeah, that's the beginning of women's equity movement.
And, excuse me, good morning, or good afternoon. As one of the co-directors for the South Dakota Coalition, we work with service programs who service victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, sex trafficking, stalking across the state. And we were starting to see the instances increase in Oglala country. And I'm also an Oglala woman, I'm also an Oglala mother. And when getting in contact with Thunder Valley and seeing what my fellow sisters over in Oglala country were doing and how this movement was looking to eradicate the violence in a very different way, changing that narrative from being reactive and waiting for the violence to happen to try to figure out what our communities need and how we can start to build our young women within our communities in order to protect themselves from the violence that was occurring. So it just seemed like a really good fit for our program, and then just me personally, something that my life work revolves around is making home a better place for my children and my grandchildren. So that's kind of how we all started coming together with this common goal.
So that answers that first question as to why we needed the women's equity movement. I did want to just jump to the side here and have everybody look up at the screen because we wanted to talk about some of the original members and some of the ladies that put their time and effort and passion into this work. And so we have Tatewi Beans, Executive Director for Thunder Valley, of course, and Lynn Cooney, Deputy Director. Decorah Hawk was also a big piece of this. Dusty Nelson, who's up here on the panel, and Mary LeBeau. Tara Hauska, who's the former Regional Equity Director, but for health reasons, she had to step down. So we send our prayers on to Tara, she's going through a difficult one. And also Lee Gaddy, she's part of this, and Arlana Badlam was also part of the panel. And to me, Lee, Two Dogs Iron Call was also part of this movement when they first started. So you guys want to put your hands together and give them a round of applause. It's a lot of good work. We'll continue to do them on the road. And then, of course, the Toy Lunderman who's up here as well. So with that, we want to move on to the next question. They're kind of answering it. Some of these questions will overlap, but we want to get, what the meaning behind WEB is. And so the next question is why was there a need for the women's equity movement? Why was it needed, I suppose? So go ahead.
I believe that it was very much needed for the voices of our women. And speaking for the children, that's what I do. The work that I like to do and have been doing for a while is standing up and speaking for those children because they can't speak for themselves. And within this women's equity movement, the children are watching. They're watching us. And they're looking for that. Some of the times they come to us and tell a story that they've never told anybody. So it's so important that we stand up and that we speak out for the best interests of the children, but for the women as well, and how we can strengthen and honor each other as good relatives and make ourselves, empowered amongst each other. And not, that's focusing on the very positives of what we want to do and what we do. However, there's lots of lateral violence, and lateral violence is an oppression. And we work very much not to engage in that. I do. And I think that that's the most important thing in lifting each other up and becoming one, because we're very powerful, and that the beauty of expressing our voice is so important. So that's one of the biggest things that I see with this women's equity movement.
There's so many reasons that this group was needed. I don't know where to start, but one of the things that I want to talk about is what Arlana mentioned, Mashki Arlana, the lateral violence. And a lot of the times it can be reduced to mean girl culture. And so with women's equity movement, I see the group really working towards dismantling mean girl culture among working professionals and community organizing. And that was one thing that I felt was very powerful, even though it might not be highlighted or we don't have a principle of dismantling mean girl culture. It's something that happens organically because, like Arlana said, we uplift each other and we really see each other for who we are, and we help each other. And one of the reasons I became more heavily involved in women's equity movement is because I realized that nobody is exempt from the violence in our communities. We grow in a soil that's acidic with the Americanisms and patriarchy and everything that colonialism brought, and we know that, and nobody's exempt from that, and we're all impacted by that. And I think women's equity movement is a collaborative effort that says we don't have to accept this, we can stand up, we can join together, and we can impact our community positively with what we know and our Lakota life ways. And so it's been a process. There's a lot of different reasons that I think are even unfolding as we do the work as to why this movement is needed. But I just wanted to highlight that.
I agree with both of my Mashkes here, the response to that. I think we could be here all day if we sat and talked about the reasons why our community needs this. And definitely, one of the main reasons I think is that the time is now. There's a shift. There's a shift across the country. We can all feel it. I think the time is now that we embrace our roles, that we step back into who we are as a people, as an Oyate, and a huge part of that, of who we used to be and the strength that we were as a people, and that's kept us to be a strong people through everything we've gone through, is our women. And our mothers, our grandmothers, and a lot of us, like me personally, I'm transitioning into a different role now. I'm transitioning into that of an auntie and an OG, and I tried to think of what I could do and what kind of space I could create in order for us to create this change ourselves. I'm tired of having other entities, other things coming in and promising to save us and fix our problems and dangle dollars in front of us, when in reality, we have that power. We have that gift amongst ourselves to do that. And as Lakota women, as Ogallala women, it's part of who we are, to stand up, to be those warrior women and embrace that role. So the women's equity movement has really been creating spaces for everybody to come in and voice their concerns, but not just the concerns. The women's equity movement has really pushed to be action motivated, to not just have a session to complain and talk about the issues. We all know the issues, but we've created spaces where we can create answers and solutions to those and actions. So it's really encouraging, and I'm thankful to be here and see so many different faces here, especially our young people. We can do this. We can make that change. We can have a better life for our young people. And this is just the beginning of it. So I'm really thankful to be able to be a part of that.
I do want to share a quick story too. Started working with the women's equity movement, looking at the work, and we held a meeting over at the casino in Prairie Winds, and we had these subgroups in this committee work that we were doing, and we had it in place. And so we put this meeting out. There was a little bit of ice on the roads for me, and a little bit of we were going to cancel it, but we decided to have it anyway. We had a lot of people, a lot of women show up. There was some Shailas and some Navajos. They all came to this meeting, all women. And, they had a lot of concerns, and they voiced their concerns and their ideas and their vision about the women's equity movement, but also a lot of focus on MMIW work, keeping our women safe, keeping our children safe. They shared a lot of powerful stories. And so even for myself and being part of that work, we were able to kind of shift. We were like, wow, this is different from what we were doing. And so Tate and Lynn put our heads together, and we decided to pull that work in as well. And it's been really good to have the opportunity to have an impact and continue to do so. And so even for myself, what these ladies are talking about, it's been a really powerful experience for myself. And so I know we're going to continue to do this work. And it just shows the adversity, and like what Mashke Toy was talking about, even the issues that are out there, and having that safe space to talk. So it was good to have all these ladies sitting there talking about, what it is that they want, that they need, that they're going to be moving forward with. Those powerful. So without further ado, I'm going to move on to the next question. We put this question in there, and I passed them around, but in the end, I know we talk 7 generations planning ahead and stuff, but for you ladies, what is the overall goal of the women's equity movement?
I'd like to share that the vision is reclaiming our role as a Lakota woman, and how we may have had to go back and relearn. We have to go back and heal some of those hurts, some of the circumstances that we as women face and have gone through are very tremendous. So to go back and heal those hurts, and so that we can articulate and be present, and that we relive, live in harmony, not relive, live in harmony, and that our children, our grandchildren, Takojas are all living in balance. That's a big, big vision, but it's but it's there. So that's what I would like to share is just, reliving that, going back to that healing, I guess, and heal our hearts so that we can articulate, like I said, and share in a good way and create that balance for our tapojas, for our children, for those future generations to come. And it's coming. We're going to be able to do this. So that's just a point I'd like to just share at this moment. I might share some more later, but go on to Dusty.
And from my perspective, the overall goal of women's equity movement is to work smarter and more efficient, not harder, to change the material and psychological conditions for the better of the Oyate, period. We need better material conditions, we need more resources in order to heal ourselves and usher ourselves out of a trauma drama era. We need to really focus and come together and be self-empowered and work together. The model that women's equity follows is that, the model of the buffalo. So it doesn't just, everybody's a member of women's equity movement, whether you're active or not. The men support on the periphery and the children are in the middle, so.
And just kind of spinning off of what Dusty had her comment, one of the goals that I see is, going back to something that I was taught by my grandpa was that, back in the day, everybody had a purpose. Everybody within our society as Lakota people had a purpose and a reason for being. And I feel like we've lost that in some ways. So I look to this movement as creating spaces for everybody to be included, everybody to have the opportunity to step into their role that they carry within our communities to make this change. Because it's a women's equity movement, but in reality, it's a people's movement. And it includes, everybody, not just women. So, that's one of the things I see moving forward is a model and creating that safe space to allow everybody to understand what, their responsibility is and their role in making a better place for everybody at home in our communities. Everybody can contribute. There shouldn't be anybody in this room that feels like they can't contribute to this movement in some way, and that you're welcome to.
So the next question with Len, we're going to get ready but I wanted to talk a little bit about what we were able to do this past year. I have 6 daughters, and so for me, I have 6 daughters. So the long of it is we did a Shnati Achilawampi ceremony, and we talked about how through colonialism and through the boarding school system and through all these different things that our people have been through that got us away from what has always kept us healthy, and that's our culture, our 7 sacred rights and our spiritual laws and things of that nature that keep us healthy, centered, and focused. I know for my own daughter, I was able to witness how much just that simple ceremony, well, it's not simple, but it's powerful. But that ceremony, when she attended it and she was part of that, she came out of there a whole different person. She came out of that ceremony a woman. And so there's not the Chilawampi ceremony, that's what it's designed for. And so witnessing my daughter go through that and some of the things she experienced, it was a really powerful thing for her, and it changed her whole life. And I always just never had an idea that ceremony was around or being practiced. And so when the young woman becomes of age, it's one of the ceremonies that our people have for our young women. And I remember one of the things I remember about it, I'll never forget, is at the end they have when you get a cane, and they'll walk with that cane. They're supposed to act like they're an elder, and everybody's laughing. They're all laughing and they're giggling because they're walking with the cane, and they're teasing each other, all the women in that ceremony. I was sitting there laughing too. And then I kind of hit me. I kind of realized that I won't ever see my daughter be able to. I won't see her get to that stage. I'll be gone. And so in another way, it hit me in the reality of life and how real it is, and the roles, and like Moshke Toy was talking about, stepping into those different ages, becoming for myself a Lekshi, and eventually a grandfather. So I wanted to share that story because for me, it was one of the successes I seen within my own family, the Joshua system. And so for you ladies, what successes have you seen from the women's equity movement? If you can talk about a few of those or one of those that really stand out to you.
I'd like to step in and answer this. Coming from my background, I work with individuals who have been victimized by domestic violence, sexual assault, and unfortunately now very often sex trafficking. And seeing the devastation that that does to an individual and the amount of healing that needs to go on for somebody, and myself speaking as a survivor, I'll be healing into the next lifetime probably. And so, one of the things, the big successes I see through my lens as an advocate for victims of violence is the empowerment that this group has done with the Ishnanti that they've done, the naming, those activities that have brought not just our young women together, but have connected them with our elders. I think that is the biggest win for us, is that we're helping build identity into our young women, our young Ogallala women. And that's something that our young people need and lack because of those things, because of colonization, because of the boarding schools. We've lost a lot of that. And I see a lot of our young people not really knowing who they come from. I mentioned my home community is Hidog, and I remember being a young girl and being ashamed to tell people I was from Hidog because people made fun of the name Hidog. And it wasn't until I got older and more into who I am to understand who Hidog was, who Chief Hidog was. He rode alongside a crazy horse. And it instilled the pride in me that I make sure my children have. And so seeing the young people that this movement has come into contact with, for me, is one of the biggest successes, because it shows me that our young people are seeking out and getting that identity that they need to really truly be proud of who they are, to get up every morning and say, I'm Ogallala, and I'm proud of it. So to me, that's a huge success.
Jitu. I was thinking about personal success, and I was thinking that all of the work that we've done was so collaborative and so shared that I don't feel ownership over any of it. And so I'm going to talk about how women's equity movement has impacted me personally. Like I said, nobody is exempt from the violence in our communities, and I was experiencing domestic violence. And the greatest personal success for me through that was the support I received through women's equity movement in a lot of different settings, and working past that disempowered feeling. You don't want to go out in public. You don't want to, do all of the things. Everybody suffers from, the imposter syndrome or the anxiety. And so it really took a lot for me to continue to go to the meetings as I was going through my own personal stuff, but I was encouraged by all of the members, and I didn't feel judged, and I didn't feel like I wasn't worthy, because they always included me. And from that support, I had a perspective shift. I went from being really bitter and angry and frustrated at my community and at men, at cis hetero men, and being really reactive, to gaining the support from women who I looked up to of all different ages, even women younger than me, through this group. And I realized that it's all of us, we're all suffering together. And so it's the model of the buffalo. I was like, it's the model of the buffalo. If we just have women's equity movement and it's just only the women doing things, that's the same. So we have to shift our perspective. Yes, we are the backbone of the nation. We're powerful, we're beautiful, we're strong, and we love each other and we support each other. But we need to also support the men, and protect the children, just like the buffalo do.
Thank you for being courageous, Dusty, and sharing that. I too would like to echo the compassion that the group has really collectively given to all of us women and then to the outer, the community as well, and bringing them inward. So I just really want to mention that compassion, the empowerment that Moshke Litoy shared as well. I think that us as women deal with such phenomenal circumstances in our life-changing circumstances. And to keep going, we have to have that support. We have to have that non-judgmental empowerment to keep going. So I just really want to echo that and really am grateful to the women's equity movement for doing that and for having these objectives, being intentional in these objectives of uplifting, of honoring each other. And I really see that, and I think that that's what's going to carry a lot of us women to continue to be that strength within our nation, and to create a healthy balance, with the men, with all other cultures, and with our life ways. Just really, the other thing I wanted to bring in about the life ways is that during this time of the inception of the women's equity movement, the pandemic came about. And I seen something that I had never seen before. And I am so thankful for the teachings that like Rick and Ethelene has shared with us, that we weren't, a lot of people wouldn't have been able to get those teachings, to saturate those teachings, if it hadn't have been from, for the internet, for Zoom, and there were many other teachings involved with Ed Starr, with, a lot of Madonna Thunderhawk. We wouldn't have, I don't know if we would have received those. So I just really think that the strength, the collaboration, and the coordination of that delivery of messages, of teachings, was really, really phenomenal. So again, the compassion, the empowerment, and the strength of teaching and collaborating. So those are the things that I think of.
So with that, just even some of the successes that we've had with WIM since I've been a part of it, I've been able to see is we did follow the spiritual calendar, and so that's really impressive just within itself. We were able to harvest chinchasha, we were able to do a buffalo kill, and actually, butcher the meat and get it out to people so they have fresh organic tatankas. Is pretty good. Also the times for prayer and the perfect times to harvest different medicines. And so that's been a real eye opener for me, that's part of the spiritual calendar and the work that WIM has as its core. But also the healing camp that we held in the Shnaki Chilowampi, and the ladies that had the opportunity to be a part of that, were all really powerful things that I've been able to witness. So there's a lot of successes, and I know there'll be a lot more down the road. The work continues and the movement grows. And so with that, that's what we're going to be talking about next. So the next question is going to be, what are the future visions of WIM? What are we looking at down the road, the future visions?
I maybe can share a little bit about the future visions is, again, reclaiming our role as women, re-educating when necessary, and just really taking the time to relearn things if we need to heal and to grow. I think those are some really necessary points going forward. There's really a lot to share here, to strengthen and, get in that diverse way of thought, and with this media summit, I was like, wow, what an opportunity to share and to grow our network, not only as women, but with other, cultures, with other ways of life too. We're just really looking at becoming, strong, steadfast with our own way of life here, and really expanding and growing and learning other diverse ways as well. I know there's international women's groups that we could really, really learn from and engage in conversations and teachings. So just really looking at that.
Yes, to everything Mashke Arlana said, and the goals and objectives of We Are Wakambi, I believe. There's 5 goals, and in the strategic plan, I believe we would like to have more community gatherings and get more people involved with those goals. And just really grow the movement, get people involved, especially young women who are here, and just continue to learn how to be responsible relatives in context. I think the healing doesn't happen when it's isolated. It happens when we're together in multi-generational settings, and learning in context. So I think that's what we'll continue to do. And
Um, for me, when we look at us as Native women, as Lakota women, and even more so as Oglala women, when we look at our numbers and what I see in my line of work, statistically speaking, us Native women are the most victimized population in this country. We have rates of violence that are beyond comprehension of the things that have occurred to us. You know, just off the top of my head, 1 in 3 of us Native women will be sexually assaulted in our lifetime. As a responding sexual assault advocate, I honestly think it's 2 in 3. And you look around at us sitting here in this room and how many Native women are in here, and just that one statistic alone scares me. You know, my brother here's the father of 6 sisters. I have 2 daughters and stepdaughters. You know, those, so, you know, when you're thinking about what brought us all here, you know, shifting the media, the narrative, I feel like one of the things I see WEM doing is shifting our own narrative, shifting the way we're portrayed as women, as Native women, as Lakota women, and taking that stand to say we're not going to be that statistic anymore. We're not going to be defined by all of this that happened to us, that we're going to step up and we're going to embrace our own power and we're going to make the change that needs to be made for us, for our daughter, for our baby. So I see this as just a small tool that hopefully we pave the way, that we set a model for others, so that other Native women across Turtle Island can have the same feeling of empowerment and strength that I have sitting here speaking on this. I want to sprinkle that amongst all of these young ladies here that are sitting here. You know, I see that as a goal and happening here in the very near future. I'm very encouraged by it.
So the next question on here is what Mashke Toy was already talking about, because the media summit is about shifting the narrative. It is about telling our story in the way that it needs to be told from our people's aspect. And Toy kind of touched on that a little bit. And so moving into the next question, I know among our women, Indigenous-wise, nationwide on Turtle Island, there are a lot of stories. We heard Sarah talk this morning, and she showed what she does and what she's been accomplishing. And so there is a huge movement for Indigenous women to rise up, to take those roles, and talk about the different things we're doing here. And that's shifting the narrative. There are thousands of stories out there, and that's good. So moving in towards this last question here before we go to comments, or if anybody else has questions out there, is in what ways do you see the women's equity movement shifting the narrative for women, tied into the media summit here?
Well, just to kind of go off a little bit of my last comment is, you know, we're at a place here where we can make that shift. And I think we need to create these spaces where we as women feel safe enough to embrace those roles. Through the media, through colonization, through every message that we see from the moment we wake up to the time we go to sleep has not always been in a positive light for us. And so I think that, you know, one of the things too in shifting the narrative, you know, and working with our allies in the media is to portray us as the strong individual beings, the life givers, the backbone of our people, and for us to also not be afraid of those roles. for us as women to not step back and be okay with how things are, because there is that, it is hard to take that step and embrace new roles. So I'm hoping that by shifting this and the way we look at each other and the way we speak and bringing back that being a good relative to each other, will be empowering. And so when we do look, when my granddaughters look and see who they are, they see positive images. They see who they really are out there and don't have to fight so much for it.
One thing that I was thinking about was the Ohunkaka series, which was the storytelling series where Lexi Edward Starr came on and he talked about the intentional colonial oppression of the feminine. That through colonization, we lost our women's warrior society. The Gatela Okola Kichie was intentionally targeted, and we no longer have a Gatela society, a healthy Gatela society, and we are not included in our government. Our voice is not included in our government as a group. And so I think that's really important to know that from the beginning of colonization, which is fueled by capitalism, the feminine has been oppressed and left out intentionally and forcefully. And so women's equity movement is an attempt to uplift women's voices so that we can be heard, not just to have awareness of what we're going through, of how we've been oppressed or how we experience violence throughout our lives, but to celebrate each other and to, like Mushki Arlana said, to have collective healing and to really become the people that we're supposed to be the Lakota people that we saw ourselves when we were spirits in the stars and we saw ourselves on this earth, to fulfill our paths, to be the people that we need to be, to create this reclamation culture of Indigenous people. We have to have access to certain things, and I think that women's equity movement can be and is a catalyst for women to tell their stories, to feel uplifted and to be seen, not just heard, but to be seen.
Again, thank you for sharing, both of you. I really see that the media summit is bringing out just that. It's an opportunity to be heard, again, your voice, and again, to stand up and speak out and to really be mindful of who's watching us as we're doing that, because it's the children. And I really think that it's going to be strengthening for them to help them when they need to stand up and speak out for themselves as children moving forth, and that the women can help them do that. I also think that a mentorship, if you will, brings about that healthy way of showing the children, the young girls about, so they don't have to go through things that maybe we've gone through. I think that it's a way of really, really strengthening and helping them become who they are at such a young age, and when we looked at, I said, we looked at, tweens, preteen, but we need to go younger. So we've started a little mentorship within our organization, but also really looking at collectively how we can coordinate and collaborate with others around us so that we can strengthen these children, these girls, to help them so that there doesn't have to be such a drastic intervention done. So that's what I see is really helping. So stand up and speak out.
One last thing I wanted to add was that it's really important for the multi-generational modeling of the teachings and the respect, because whenever these young people, if they want to step in, we don't want them to feel afraid that they're going to be greeted by oppressive older relatives. And so I think that's something that's really important that women's equity is modeling, is inclusiveness, compassion, and multi-generational spaces.
Any other, so with that, thank you, ladies. We appreciate it. That's the women's equity movement. I do want to leave time open here. We're supposed to be ending here pretty quick, but does anybody have any questions for these ladies? Or any comments about what they shared with everybody today? Going once?
I want to say something. I'm Debbie Phelps. I work at Untitled Chapter. I'm the HR person there. Just listening to the ladies, I come from a big family. I have six sisters. So, with the women group, how you guys meet and everything and talk about things. And, I know of it because I am coach's supervisor. But I never attended. And after hearing you guys, I really want to get involved, because even though I have older sisters and younger sisters, and I'm the middle person of the sisters, and so I know how to communicate with my older sisters, and I know how to communicate with my younger sisters, being a middle child. But I really feel like, so I have that, and because I know what the women equity is about, but I always felt like I didn't need to get involved because I have a support system and everything. But after listening to you guys, I feel like I should get involved because I could help maybe a young person, a young girl on the reservation that may need help. Because I live alone. I love dogs and animals, so I have like 3 pets. This is my stage, she knows I love pets. Anyways, so I spend a lot of time, for animals and stuff like that. But I really feel like, I'm getting older now and I'm stepping into that Uchi role too. So I do want to get more involved and help like the younger generation, That's all I want to say. Thank you.
That's really encouraging, and I think that's kind of what we're looking for, because we also recognize that not all of us have that support, and a lot of our young people don't. And so if they can start to identify us in the community as a safe place, safe person, then that's a win. So I'm glad that you're, that's what we want, through our community.
So I just wanted to, my name is Kate Thunderhop, but I just wanted to encourage you guys. I really appreciate hearing those words from each and every one of you out there. Our women at home, we do need to feel like we're helping each other, lifting each other up. And I think that is really the big key. And I appreciate hearing that from you guys. There is a lot of everyone trying to be, the leader. I think our people and young people need to look around and see that we can do this together. And what you guys are doing is really awesome. And I'm really glad I came. I've been going through some personal issues recently, but I'm here with my daughters and I want them to learn. Thank you.
I do want to point out to you guys while I'm strutting over there and squeezing in and out of chairs. On the table, there's some QR codes with your phone. And on there, we have one for MMIW policy work that we're looking at. You just put your camera on that QR code, it'll pop up and take you to the survey. And also for a community needs assessment. So, through the dinner and through when they're gonna speak during the luncheon, everyone grab your chow and get right back in here, you're well done. If you have the opportunity, please, get on there and join the revolution, I always say, but there's some really good information and some surveys in there that we're gonna be utilizing so we can move forward with some good work. Okay, let me get this.
I would just like to say thank you for sharing your story and your strength. I'd also like to thank you guys for stepping up and doing this for our community and for all of us. So thank you for that. I would like to hear more about how you plan to implement across our community, like what you're doing. What's the future? This is the first time I've ever heard of it. It's amazing. and I want to know more, and I work at the girls' school, and so we are all about empowering our next generation of girls. So thank you, and I'd like to hear more about that.
Yeah, we can get you a number. Yeah.
We'll get you tied in, Shante.
Get you in, man.
The strategic plan has 5 working groups, and when we have a meeting, you can choose which goal you would like to be a part of, and then each group is a working group, and they make their own plans and action plans and implementation. So welcome, Shante, Moshke.
Yeah, if you want to connect with the ladies, anybody in here, or with myself, just we're around for the next few days here. Roman, so if you're good lost, pull us back in. So any other comments or questions? Anybody? Well, and if not, we want to thank you for your time and coming in, and thank the ladies. Now would be the round of applause if you guys want to. Thank you. I think it's, we did it just right, it's 12:20, so I think it's time to vote up. Say a prayer. Say a prayer.
Coach, I just wanted to plug, I'll use my cheerleading voice. Yeah, I just wanted to plug Saturday morning at 9 o'clock at the band shell. The Native Women's Society of the Great Plains, who I'm also a collaborative partner with, is having a domestic violence awareness walk. So it begins at 9 o'clock in the morning. So I really encourage you, if you have time Saturday, you come and join us to bring some awareness to that issue. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Thank you.
And to the panel here, how about another round of applause for our panel here, the Women's Equity Movement? Those things they speak of and those issues that were brought forward, these are major things for our people. And as a man, as a Wichashta, I have no right to speak on those issues involving our women, but as men, we do have a responsibility to help in any way we can and however we can. So again, we say thank you to Wopila Tanka. And at this time, in the grand fashion of our beautiful Ocheti Shakoi people, here in the lands of our Lakota people, our Lakota relatives, in a place that I would just learn this morning called Wita Paha, what we now know as Pahasapa, the Chesapa. We have asked Dekshi Rick over here if he would talk to Wakantanka on our behalf with the Daku Wakanga Wakanga Dikchiwa, and say a prayer on behalf of all of us as we share a meal together. And once we finish eating, I do encourage you to please get your meal and come back in, as we still have a very beautiful agenda put together. So at this time, I turn things on over here to Dekshi Rick.